Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayla's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome into Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high on top Rack House 1 here at the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Welcome aboard. I hope you had a great weekend. Got another great show planned for you, starting off with Greg Rakestraw. Greg, I'm not sure if you're there or not. I've got you muted, or it looks like you're muted. Oh, yeah, you've got to mute yourself. So we'll get Greg on, but how was your weekend? Hey, he's there.
Good morning, my friend. Sorry, that had a little bit technical glitch off the start. You good?
Absolutely. Just enjoying the rainfall right now, wishing that I could just stay in bed all day.
I was going to say, now, that's normally stuff that farmers say in May. I'm not sure you can use that excuse in the middle of December, Jimmy.
No, you're right. Hey, before we get into a lot of stuff, Lanesville girls and Borden, man, I know this is not breaking news around the state, but two of the tiniest schools playing down there in tiny southern Indiana, but some dominant basketball. But I just wanted to mention that even though Lanesville went down, they lost to Borden for the first time in a while. But that's apparently one heck of a rivalry that they have going there.
They sold out the gym. Brian Hanshin of the Indianapolis Star thought the game was important enough to go down and cover it. Final score, 30-29. There could be some news about that game later today, Jim.
Really?
Yes.
I guess you can't.
That's all I'm at liberty to say at this point in time. So just stay tuned. There might be more details on that game announced later today.
Not surprising. It's just that's just one of the old-fashioned, good old town against town kind of a deals, man. And if most of you are not familiar with either Lanesville or Borden, with good reason, they're dots on the Indiana state map, but not to those of us that live from or in southern Indiana. Some great communities down there, and they love their hoops, baby.
Well, Lanesville has been dominant after not having much track record success ever in girls basketball. Last 5 or 6 years, that's not been the case. Borden is the team that has been closest to them in terms of potentially beating them. Now, obviously, until this year, they were not just in the same league, but in the same sectional. That's not the case this year because Lanesville moves up to 2A because of the success factor, winning the last two 1A girls basketball state championship games. So Thursday night was scheduled to be the only meeting of the season between the two teams, which is what made the game and even the finish all the more important. So, but again, potential news on that game later today.
Absolutely. Over the weekend in the Forum Tip-Off Classic, boys basketball, man, that's always a huge deal, and some surprises this year. Jeffersonville getting knocked off for one. I'm not sure if you were there because I know your duties are so vast, but that's one of the big events that always takes place in basketball in the Hoosier State.
Yeah, I had that call of that game, and again, you got to remember Jeffersonville does not have Trey Singleton yet. He is out due to a knee injury. The idea is that he's a couple of weeks away, so I'm not sure what that means for his status in terms of the Hall of Fame Classic, potentially playing in that when Jeff comes up and plays at Newcastle on December the 28th. And at the same time, Jeff also still has two other Division I recruits in Michael Cooper and P.J. Douglas, both going to Wright State. Clint Sargent, the head coach at Wright State, assistants Dan Beret, Travis Trice were all in attendance for the game. PJ had a really good game. Coop struggled a little bit. But again, Noblesville's a solid team. And one thing that a couple things I can talk about Sharon Wilkerson here because I think he's a really good coach. Sharon is great about exploiting mismatches. Well, without Singleton, and just because the way that Noblesville is built, you take Singleton out of the mix. Noblesville and Jeffersonville look a lot alike, a lot of interchangeable pieces that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". And so there really wasn't a chance for Jeff to kind of get those mismatches, in terms of that game. That in Noblesville is really good. Noblesville last year lost 3 times, 2 to Fishers, 1 to Westfield by a combined total of 13 points. They lost in the sectional final to the eventual state champs in Fishers by 2 points in the final minute of the game, and they returned some key pieces, led by Justin Curry II, who as a junior is getting some high major looks because of his 3-point shooting ability. So, no shame in that loss for Jeffersonville. And Jeff has been great about getting upstate, going wherever they need to go to play the best level of competition. They will play Attucks, who is 6-2, who got beat by Fishers. They'll play them in Evansville. They're coming up to Indy the next weekend to play, in Newcastle. They'll come back this way the weekend after to play at Lawrence North. Jeff's schedule has been tremendous. They're going to be just fine by the time the March rolls around. But the other 2 games, the other 2 teams are certainly worthy of a mention here. Lawrence North handed Greenfield Central their first regular season loss in 2 years. Braylon Mullins was spectacular. But again, as a whole, Lawrence North is simply a better team, 1-6, 1-7, and they won that game by 18 points. That's going to be a great tutorial for Greenfield Central by the time that they get to March. They know they've had to up their schedule. They have not gotten out of their sectional, and so they've done that in Braylon's senior year. So lesson learned for Greenfield Central. This will make them better down the stretch. And again, Fishers is really stinking good. And Fishers, after going 28-1 last year, they may be better this year. And they graduated their top 2 scorers. One in Keenan Garner's playing at IUBB, the other in Tatum Metzger's playing at Huntington. They returned 6 of their 9-man rotation, but they are putting it on people. They beat Attucks by 15, and Attucks without Desmond Briscoe, but that's the closest game that Fishers has played so far this year. The other 4 previous teams they have played, they have beaten by at least 28 points, and that included Noble. Garrett Weininger is a monster.
Yeah, and a rough weekend in college basketball for the area teams as all 3 teams go down. Indiana, Purdue, Butler, all losing over the weekend in various places. Indiana was in Nebraska. But what are your duties coming up this weekend in high school basketball?
All right, so this weekend is a slight catch my breath weekend, and it's just because there are some events before Christmas, but most of them are going to happen, right after the Christmas holiday. Some holiday tournaments will be January 2nd and 3rd this year, kind of the way the calendar works out. So Friday night got Ben Davis and Warren Central, and again, it could be Ben Davis without Mark Zachary, Warren Central without Javon Guess, as you've heard me say before. That's kind of the theme so far of the year of Indiana high school basketball, is who is not playing due to injury. Other game I will have to be Zionsville and Harrison. Zionsville has a potential Indiana All-Star, McGuire Mitchell. He's heading to IU Indy. Their results have been mixed, but again, they played a really good schedule out of the chute. Harrison should be a game that they should win. We'll have that one coming up on Saturday. I'm looking forward to heading over to Terre Haute and checking out Indiana State for the first time this year, as they have a brief dip into non-conference and non-1 play before going right back to Valley action after Christmas. I'll have their game Saturday afternoon at 1 on ESPN+.
Man, it doesn't slow down. It doesn't slow down. Unfortunately for the Colts, not great news there. As yesterday, an opportunity in Denver, and they got off to a tremendous start. It looked like, oh man, the Colts they're on a roll. Here we go. And then it happened. I don't even have to say what happened. It happened. And boy, it was down. It was just downhill from there for the Colts. That seemed to be a seismic change that they just never recovered from.
No, and when you have a chance on the road against a potential playoff team to go up 20-7 and one of your top players just makes a silly and unnecessary mistake.
Leon let it.
Right. Makes an unnecessary mistake and drops the ball at the goal line. I'm not sure that's a blow you're going to recover from. You know, to the Colts' credit, their defense kind of held the line as long as they could into the fourth quarter. Colts took a 13-10 lead into quarter number 4, but then the dam broke and got beat 31-13, and their playoff hopes largely evaporate, at that point in time. They are still mathematically alive, and obviously the Colts play the bottom end of the league the last 3 games of the season, which is what made yesterday's development so disappointing. They would have to have the Chargers lose twice. Chargers finish with the Patriots and the Raiders, so the Chargers aren't losing twice. And again,
they got it handed to them yesterday, though, didn't they?
They did, but it was there for the taking for the Colts, and in a game that was a must-win, and you had to bring your best, and you had to bring the mental focus. Credit to the defense. They played as well as they have played all year, but offense and special teams could not match that yesterday.
And we talked to Matt Taylor on Fridays, and it was, in essence, a de facto playoff game for the Colts because they needed that game to keep things going in the right direction for the playoffs. And not that it's impossible now, but that just makes it all the more difficult.
Correct. And again, it was the manner in which the game unfolded, where clearly they played so well for most of the first half, scored on the first 2 drives, and then you put 3 points on the board the rest of the game. Again, for Anthony Richardson, you would see signs of progress. He was great at the start. Things kind of unraveled on him as the game went along. But again, you've got Jonathan Taylor, one of your best players, that, again, makes a boneheaded mistake. Michael Pittman Jr., one of your best players, who then fumbles the ball after that. But your defense, which has been more bad than good this year, holds Denver to less than 200 yards of offense. The defense gets 3 takeaways, and you lose by 18 points. That's not a good spot to be in, Jim.
No, it is not. It is certainly not. But the good thing is it's like Lay's potato chips. They just make more. So we've got more games that are come up, more opportunities each week for the Colts. They can make up for it, and hopefully they will. But it is hard to come back from those kind of games that you just know you give away off of unforced errors. And
obviously it's a big picture issue. This Colts team has kind of been stuck in a rut as a franchise. Barring some of the miraculous now, we're talking about 2 playoff appearances in the last 10 years. And that comes off a stretch of 16 seasons where the Colts were in the playoffs every year but 2. We got spoiled around here. What the Colts have been dealing with and their fans have been dealing with the last few years, this is what a lot of other places have to go through. Yesterday's game was so important to Denver because they had not made the playoffs since winning Super Bowl 50, since Peyton Manning's last game. And now they're a win away, from doing exactly that. So it is a very frustrated fan base that I worry goes from frustrated to apathetic at some point in time because of kind of the way that things have been going here in Indianapolis.
Well, that's kind of happening down in Bloomington, just not in that sport. It is definitely not that way in football in Bloomington. Basketball, yeah, I don't know if I can say the same thing or not, but we won't even talk about that because Friday's college football playoff, man. This is the first ever college playoff game of the 12-team era, which that's not going to last long until it goes to 14 or 16, but the expanded playoff era. This is the first playoff game ever at Notre Dame. It's the first Friday game that Notre Dame has ever played at Notre Dame Stadium. All kinds of firsts going on for this thing, which is just makes it all the more cool. But man, biggest thing ever, all eyes and ears, whether it's on radio or TV, if you're watching college football, are going to be on this game, Greg. This is the only game of the night.
Correct. And if you had told me at the beginning of the season that in the first game of the college football playoff era, that the Indiana Hoosiers would be playing in the game, I would clearly have told you, Jim, stop drinking so much of the sponsor's product before the show because we're on before 9 a.m. and you may need to seek professional help. It's mind-blowing to think about this. The fact that Notre Dame gets to host a game, you would say kind of expected because you knew they couldn't be a top 4 seed. You knew they should be around a top 15 program this year, and they were. But we're talking about Indiana, a school that has played in the sporadic New Year's Day Bowl, but hasn't been to a Rose Bowl since LBJ was the president. And kids, that's not LeBron James that we're talking about. It's mind-blowing to me that we're having this conversation, and that the only time and again, you should remember this too. I remember, I grew up, even though I grew up next to you in Southern Indiana, I was a University of Louisville fan. It's not the case anymore, but growing up, that was my team. And I remember when they made the Fiesta Bowl kind of through a confluence of circumstances in terms of teams.
Absolutely. And blew the crap out of Alabama.
Right, in terms of teams not wanting to play in that game for some political reasons. UFL's like, we'll take it. We'll play on New Year's Day. Let's go. And again, as you said, they smoked Alabama. Well, that actually coincided with a down year for Denny Crum. And I remember making the joke back then. I was a freshman in high school and going, well, we're a football school now. Well, a generation later, here we are. Indiana can say the same thing. So you're right. The only saving grace for Mike Woodson is that it's finals week and everybody's going to talk football. That's where the focus can be. And let's hope for Indiana, we carry that into the new year where they're playing in the round of 8 and potentially playing beyond that too.
Absolutely, brother. Well, I hope you had a great weekend and that your week is just as spectacular as we look forward to talking to you again next week.
You got it, buddy. Thank you.
You bet. Greg Rakestraw from the ISC Sports Network. Make sure you are staying in tune with all that is going on there because they cover the state in all kinds of things. Hey, we've got lots more coming up, including Don Fischer. He joins us next here on the program. Back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after these messages.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Morale in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Marie Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. and that's the hard truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the hard truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Coming to you, of course, from high atop the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, joined now by the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer. And Don, I know it was not a fun trip to Lincoln for you, but we're not going to focus much on that. We'll talk about it, but we're going to talk more about heading to South Bend later on. But we can't ignore that Indiana goes to Lincoln and loses to the Cornhuskers for the fourth straight time. And it's early in the season, so you can't, I guess, start biting your fingernails off. But in talking during the show about the game, before the game, I kept calling this a must-win for Indiana because of all the landmines that are out there in the conference, Don, when they start traveling, going all these places. And every time, and I look at the home schedule, and even if they win most of them, I don't think they're going to win all of them. Every game you are to lose, you've got to make up someplace else this season. And this is not the season, I think, that you need to do that in this conference.
Well, it's going to be difficult. There's no question. You don't want to lose your first game on the road during the year. And it was a game that was winnable for Indiana, but they got off to a poor start. They were down 13-3. The good news is they fought back and made it a 3-point ball game at halftime. It was a 3-point game with about 6.5 minutes to go in the contest. And yet Indiana went stone cold in that final 6.5 minutes. They couldn't make a shot. They were 1 of 18 in that last 6.5 minutes of the ball game, which is just unheard of. They couldn't knock anything down from the 3-point line late in the ball game either. They were 8 of 35. They took 35 threes in this game, which is the biggest number of 3-point shots ever taken by an Indiana team under Mike Woodson. And I don't know when the last time they shot 35 or more shots, 3-pointers in any game that I can ever remember.
You'd have to go back to the Tom Crean era. That's probably for sure.
That's true. And one of the struggles I thought that was difficult to understand in this ball game was the lack of the bigs in the second half. I mean, I think Ballo had 8 points in the first half, didn't score a point in the second half. Malik had 9 points in the first half, had 3 points in the second half. Somehow Nebraska got them stopped of getting the basketball inside to the bigs. And Miles Rice was the only guy that was really in the second half. It just kind of took the game over for Indiana. And he had 14 points in that second half, 20 for the ball game. But Indiana couldn't get anybody else going in the second half from a shooting perspective. And, those kinds of things that you can't have that kind of a drought at the end of a ball game when it's a tight ball game like that. That's number one. But number two is, where were the bigs and why weren't they getting the ball to them more?
Yeah. And I have not beat on this subject much. I'm not going to this year, but there's no consistency with what they do and how they win games. I mean, a couple games back, we see the 3-point game becoming a part of the offense. Luke Goody was looking really good and free and knocking down shots. And then the next game that's not the case. And then this game you have this. So I don't know that there is a consistent plan of attack, and adjustments at halftime seem to be lacking. And that, especially in a game like that one.
Well, Caden Carlisle was the guy that knocked down some threes in the ball game against Minnesota, and yet in the second half of that, or in the game against Nebraska, he struggled to shoot the basketball. And Caden's one of those guys. He's either on or he's not, generally speaking, and that's what we've seen so far out of him so far this year. The one thing he brings to the table is a really good defensive effort every time he walks out on the floor. I thought we saw a good effort from that perspective for him in this ball game. But Indiana's inability to stop Bryce Williams in this contest was the difference. And let's give credit where credit's due. Williams played tremendous, but he made some shots that you just wouldn't normally see him make. He had 30 points in the ball game. It was one of those games where it was like Casey Tamanaga was back again, even though it was Bryant who was doing it. Because they seemed last year to have Tamanaga was the guy that killed him a lot. And that's where they got 3 wins last season primarily because of him. But they had a better basketball team, I think, last year than they do this year. And yet Indiana couldn't handle it. So it's disturbing in that context, but Indiana's got a week to get ready for Tennessee Chattanooga for Saturday's ball game. Tennessee Chattanooga should be a win, 7-4 team right now. They don't play. I mean, they don't have they don't have the kind of schedule that Indiana's dealing with. So we'll see, but they will. I don't think there's any doubt. I doubt that Indiana is going to fall again before Big Ten play resumes in January because they don't have that many games, number one. But number two, they should be able to take care of business. Right. So we'll see. But there's a lot of work to be done. There's no question about that.
Well, they ended the game allowing Nebraska to finish on a 7-0 run, 17-1 run over the last 6.5 minutes. But worst, Indiana finished the game 0 for their last 12 and 1 of their last 18,
right,
with 3 turnovers in that span.
Yep. So those are the kinds of things they've got to clean up. There's no question. We'll hear more from Coach Woodson tonight on Inside IU Basketball at 7:05 from Hoosier Hanks. Hopefully you'll have a nice crowd there for this evening. But right now this team's got a lot to work on. They got semester exams to deal with this week too. So it's a busy week for the basketball team.
Yeah, it's the time for them to try to regroup because, like you said, they don't have the conference games and they've got finals and whatnot. So it's a good time to kind of regroup the mind. Speaking of a team that is regrouped and ready to go, the Indiana football Hoosiers, as Friday night, it's nut cutting time, baby. It's Don, this is the first game, Notre Dame Friday game that Notre Dame has ever played in Notre Dame Stadium. There's so many firsts for this game. Your first playoff game ever in your distinguished career. That's got to be a cool thing because not a lot of people get to add that, say that they've done that. Doing it from Notre Dame Stadium, which is it's a cool, other than being able to have that and host that game, that's a pretty cool place to do it. I think this is a winnable place for Indiana. It's just not as daunting as say Ohio State or Michigan. There's a difference in those places in the level of noise, but this is a place where Indiana, I think, can go and win. I think that they are going to learn from the mistakes they made at Ohio State in dealing with or their lack of dealing with the noise and playing on a big time stage. I think that was a huge part of it as well. I know that Kurt Signetti would bristle if you suggested that to him, that they have not played in big time games before. But let's be honest, this is playing Notre Dame at Notre Dame, and I'm in the playoffs, and it doesn't get much bigger than that.
Well, it's a huge game. There's no question about that. It's a historic game from Indiana's perspective, from the Indiana football perspective. There's no doubt. It turns into something that you don't want to make it bigger than it is. You know what I mean? You don't want to put pressure on the players, that kind of thing. But everybody knows what's going on here. This is a playoff game, and you've got a chance to go to the national championship. If you beat Notre Dame, you go to the next level, and if you beat that team, you go to the next level. And if you beat that team, then you're in the title game.
If you win the first game, you're 2 games away from playing for the national title.
Right.
2 games.
So
it's not like the NCAA tournament where you got to play 6 games.
Right. I mean, it's historic in many respects, as we've said before. It's the first time Indiana's ever been in this position, but they're in position because of Kurt Signetti, his coaching staff, and these players that he brought into Indiana. And it's unique. It's so exciting to be a part of that. I think that's, from everybody's perspective, that's why there's going to be pressure in this ball game, but I think everybody's looking forward to it. And I do believe that Indiana is fully capable of beating Notre Dame in South Bend. I believe that to my heart.
Well, I agree. And I thought that about Ohio State, and then I'm like, okay, I saw where, I didn't account for this, and then I didn't account for them making those mistakes. But if you make those mistakes again, well, you're going to
Right.
yourself in the same position. I don't care, and I don't care who the hell you're playing. You be playing Maryland or Purdue for that matter. You can't make mistakes. But this is it's different because Notre Dame does not have the defensive front that, say, Ohio State or Michigan had. The beefy NFL type players they have there. I think Indiana is going to find some opportunities to run the ball, and I think that they have to be able to run the ball to set up the pass game, because the one thing Notre Dame does do well is defend the pass. They have a really good secondary.
They do.
Their players are very tight coverage. But if you're running the ball, that's going to force them to put more guys in the box and less in the secondary.
Well, Xavier Watts is their key guy. I mean, he's a two-time All-American, including this year. He's got 5 interceptions on the season, but they've got a good defensive backfield. You're going to have to throw the football effectively against these guys, and you got to run it. I mean, and here's the other thing. You got to stop the run, because Notre Dame, they have 3 guys that run the football, including their quarterback, Riley Leonard, who has 600, and I don't know what the number is, but he's well over 600 yards on the season, 650, I think, something like that. Jeremiah Love is almost 1,000-yard rusher this season. Will go over 1,000 yards probably in this ball game because he's at 949. And so you've got to be able to stop the run. That's one thing that Indiana's defense has been able to do this year. They've been able to keep the running game in check in almost every game that they played. And so I really believe that Indiana's got the tools to get this thing taken care of. But they can't have the same mistakes that they had against Ohio State. That punting game has got to be much better. There's no question you can't drop a punt snap, and you've got to be able to punt it where you're supposed to punt it. So these are things that this Indiana football team, I think, have corrected. We'll just see how it plays out, but it's going to be one of the most exciting nights of college football in the history of Indiana.
Oh, this is, again, and I hate to say this because I've said it once and maybe twice this season, the biggest game in Indiana football program history. It's not often that you can say that multiple times in the same season, much less in a season, but the game at Ohio State, because of the opportunities that it presented, right. And now this game supersedes even what that may have presented. The possibility of just being able to play for a national championship, and Indiana is in that position. And I agree with you. I think that they have as good a chance, if not better, to win than to lose, because their run defense has not let them down all season.
No,
even against Ohio State, they held sway. They towed the line. And I think that if you can do it against Ohio State in that situation, dealing with what they dealt with, they can handle this as well. Got to keep that quarterback in check. Like you said, he's an outlier, but they have done a tremendous job of it so far. It's more interesting to me now because I know that that's a situation that has to be taken care of. But Indiana's offense, if Notre Dame can't slow Indiana's running game down, their passing game will eat them alive.
Well, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm so excited about it. Obviously, I get a chance to do the broadcast on Friday night. It's going to be fun. It's going to be historic in that sense, and we'll see. I mean, I believe Indiana's going to win the football game because I've watched this guy coach this team all year long. I have the greatest amount of respect for what he is able to do as a coach, and I know these players believe in him just like I do. So it's going to be a really interesting night, to say the least, and we're just looking forward to it. Obviously, you know, the build up to Friday is going to be huge. It's semester exam week too for every football player and the basketball team as well. So, you know, all those things play into it as well, but I don't think there's any question. I think the entire country will be watching this football game.
Had Tim Brando on the show last week, and he's done several Indiana games for Fox. And he says, I like Indiana to win this game. And so that's coming from someone who's done a ton of big-time games. That's all he does is watch big-time games because he's calling them every week. That's a pretty good endorsement from someone on the national media side, because Indiana doesn't have a lot of national media support.
No, well, it's understandable, right? Take a look at the history. So, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, this is going to be, like I said before, it's historic. But I think Indiana's got a tremendous opportunity here, and I think they're going to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Don Fischer, you can catch him tonight out in Hanks at 1285 South College Mall Road for Inside Indiana Basketball. Go ahead.
One other thing, Jim, we have a special show coming up on Thursday. It is recorded, so it's not going to be live at Hoosier Hanks, but it's an Inside IU football show with Kurt Signetti, with 6 players, and Scott Dolson. So we've got a terrific show coming up on Thursday of this week, 7:05, the normal start time for Inside IU football. And that show, of course, will be pre-recorded, so it won't be at Hoosier Hanks, but it will be live, or I shouldn't say live, but it will be on Thursday evening at 7:05 over most of our affiliate radio stations throughout the state.
You can still go to Hanks and listen to it. I'm sure they won't mind.
That's true. That's true.
Well, Don, we'll see you later today as we'll be meeting with Coach Kurt Signetti of Indiana. Yesterday, Marcus Freeman spoke, so today it's Kurt Signetti's turn. But it's time, man. I know I got to let you go, but I know you probably don't get jacked up for games, but you just mentioned a minute ago the importance of this game. Does that filter into your after all these years of you doing games, though, of realizing, man, I'm getting to do this is a major game I'm going to be doing?
Well, I mean, I don't think of it that way. To me, it's just I don't want to say it's just another game, but right. It is just another game from a broadcast perspective, and you prep for the same way you do every other ball game,
just like a team does.
Right. It's no different than any other broadcast that you've ever done, other than the fact of the importance of the game historically.
Absolutely. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Again, catch him tonight out at Hanks with Inside Indiana Men's Basketball. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Appreciate it. See you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. There's the voice of the Hoosiers joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And again, you can catch him out at Hoosier Hanks East tonight in Bloomington for those that are close enough that can get down there for Inside Indiana Basketball. And then you heard him on the show on Thursday that you can listen to. That'll be kind of a cool, all-encompassing show heading into Friday nights. And later this week, we'll have Sean McDonough on. He'll be calling the game for ABC. So another fun guest. We've got more coming up here on this day. Hope you're sticking with us. We're back with it right after these messages from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you for joining us here to start your week off. I know it's a little rainy out there, depending upon where you are in the great state of Indiana, but it is falling right now, and it looks to be doing that all day today. That's okay. Nothing going on, so no biggie, other than having to get out and get to a bunch of press conferences today. Yesterday, Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame, met with the media ahead of Friday night's college football playoffs opening first-round game against Indiana, as Notre Dame will host a playoff game for the first time in the history of that stadium. This is some serious history, folks, in college football, because Notre Dame is one of, if not the most historic stadiums, sites in the country. Not, the stadium itself, but just the field. That field hasn't changed. That's the same field that Newt Rockne walked. That's the same field that the Four Horsemen strode across. That's the same field that the Gipper played on. Pretty cool. I've got to tell you. I'm excited about getting to go back to cover a game there. It's been, I haven't covered a game there since 91. It's been a minute, but Marcus Freeman, here's what he had to say about the Indiana Hoosiers.
Just moving along to Indiana, obviously it's a 11-1 football team, very talented, but you can tell they're coached well. They play, as I often say, with the clarity that you look for when you watch film, right? It's a team that plays fast, a team that understands what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it. And so you can tell they understand what's expected of them. They make quick and fast decisions, a very disruptive, chaotic defense that is, I think, number one in the country at stopping the run. And so we understand it'll be a great challenge for us, and we got to have a great week of prep as we get ready for Friday night.
You already mentioned that he believes Indiana's number one against the run. Well, they are number one against the run. And it's not even close, to be honest with you. Indiana averaging 0.8 touchdowns per game, allowing. They give up less than 1 touchdown per game on the ground. That's over 12 games that they've played, people. Think about that. 12 games. Nobody else did that. And a lot of other people had crappy schedules as well. Notre Dame's schedule, not exactly something to write home about. They're not up here. As a matter of fact, I don't know that they're in the top 50. Penn State didn't do that, but Indiana did. And don't forget, against Ohio State had been stopped in the red zone one time all season before they played Indiana. Indiana did it twice in the same game. the defense showed up then, and it'll show up this week. That is a problem that Notre Dame is going to have to deal with, without question. But here's some more on Marcus Freeman.
Coach, as it relates to Indiana's defense, I mean, the stats indicate, you always use the expression, play football, not football. Obviously, they're not playing football either. How do you, on the other side of it, how do you combat that?
Yeah, they do some unique things with their D-line, with their second-level defense in terms of pressure package, but also some different stunts that you don't see every week. What we can't do is try to play football. You hear me say it all the time, and make sure, hey, we're scheming everything up the exact right way. Part of this is you got to be aggressive. You got to establish a new line of scrimmage when you're running the football. And that's a mindset and a mentality that we have to have, but they've done an excellent job of stopping the run all season long.
And they have, behind the defensive coordinator, Bryant Haynes, who is one of the finalists for the Broyles Award given to the nation's top assistant coach. This is the second consecutive year Bryant has been nominated for this and been a finalist, and he's done it at two different schools. Now, I reached out to the Broyles Foundation, and apparently there are a few other guys that has happened with, but I was not given specific information, but apparently he's not the only one to that ever happened, but I've still not gotten to see what that information was. But yeah, here's Marcus Freeman again at his presser yesterday in regards to Indiana this Friday night.
You've had some time now to kind of look back at the USC game, particularly the uncharacteristic giving up all of those passing yards. I'm curious, kind of on the other side of the ball, why are these young corners ready to shed that and stop a pretty good Indiana passing offense?
Yeah, I mean, again, Christian, there was a couple plays they made on him that they have really good players. They had a really good quarterback. They made some plays. But again, when Christian picks off that last ball and takes it to the house, is a reflection of one play, one life. This is the only thing that matters. And we have the utmost confidence in all of our DBs, Christian Gray included. You got to learn from some of the things that happened, but also understand, build off the confidence that he has after that last interception he took to the house. And so they'll be ready to go. They'll be ready. All of our DBs will be ready for the challenge that presents itself on Friday.
They're gonna need it because Indiana poses a pretty good threat. You've got the most efficient quarterback in the country. Not only that, Indiana's passing game, while it may not be overall at number one in the country because of total yardage and this, that, and the other thing, but as far as efficiency, no, I don't think anyone is more efficient than Curtis Rourke has been. His numbers alone, I think he's either number one or number two in yards per attempt and yards per completion. The other stuff, I don't really care about, because that shows you how every performance fits in. When you're completing the ball, well, even when your numbers are the highest just by attempt, that's pretty good. And then when your numbers are the highest by completion, that's also pretty good. As far as completion percentage, Curtis is number 7, 74%. 74% on this season. That's pretty good. I'm just wondering what his numbers would have been like had he not had to sit out the Washington game and just a little other time. But had they not had the crappy game they had as far offensively against Ohio State as well, that cost him from being in the Heisman conversation. I mean, he was in the conversation, but that cost him from being in New York. I'll be honest with you, I think, because he had so many different aspects that came together. He has high yardage, high touchdowns, but his percentage, his completion percentage is astronomical, but his yards per are off the charts. I'm trying to find those exact numbers. There we go. Passing efficiency. Curtis Rourke, number 1. Again, not close. His efficiency rating is 181.4. That's 4 points above Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Will Howard, he is 9 points above Will Howard from Ohio State. He is 10 points higher than Cameron Ward, Heisman Trophy finalist from Miami. He is about 13 points higher than Shedeur Sanders of Colorado. He is, a bunch of points higher than Dylan Gabriel of Oregon. Efficiency. That matters more to me than the bulk, because it matters. The other parts of the game matter. Running game, rushing game, and all of that. But I'm looking for, Notre Dame's quarterback. Don't see him. He's not on this list. So there he is. He's 47th. Riley Leonard is 47th with a efficiency rating of 140.8. Curtis Rourke again, 181.4. And at the top, not Indiana is, on paper, Indiana is the better team on both sides of the ball. They're a better defensive team. And quite honestly, I think they're a better offensive team. Now, the best teams don't always win games, no matter what sport we're talking about. Different factors go into play. Let's see. Completions per game. Kyle McCord leads that one. And now, ironically, I'm still looking for Curtis Rourke. He's 50th in completions per game. A little ironic. But that just shows Indiana has a better balance, I think, offensively. They don't need it as much. And if that is the case, that is why Indiana has a very, very good chance of winning that game Friday night at Notre Dame because of their balance. They don't have to rely on the passing game only. They haven't had to for most games. I think this is going to fall into that situation. Again, Notre Dame's defensive line, I'm not saying they're bad. They are not Ohio State. They are not Michigan. They're not huge. The size of these guys, smaller than most. They don't have a 300-pound guy on their defensive line. A lot of them are smaller. I think they're going for quickness, maybe. But it's going to be just a blast. Here's one last clip from Marcus Freeman.
You've had some time now to kind of look back at the USC game, particularly the uncharacteristic giving up all of those passing yards. I'm curious, kind of on the other side of the ball, why are these young corners ready to shed that and stop a pretty good Indiana passing offense?
Yeah, I mean, again, Christian, there was a couple plays they made on him that they have really good players. They had a really good quarterback. They made some plays. But again, when Christian picks off that last ball and takes it to the house, is a reflection of one play, one life. This is the only thing that matters. And we have the utmost confidence in all of our DBs, Christian Gray included. You got to learn from some of the things that happened, but also understand, build off the confidence that he has after that last interception he took to the house. And so they'll be ready to go. They'll be ready. All of our DBs will be ready for the challenge that presents itself on Friday.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fischer. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Monday. Appreciate you being with us, as always, coming to you from high atop Rock House #1 here at the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. And make sure you have plenty of Hard Truth on hand, baby, for all of the football shenanigans that are coming up, whether you're going to the game or not, which I know that most of you will not be just because of the limited tickets. Just keep hoping for an Indiana win, because if that happens, not only will there be an abundance of tickets, it will be at the Sugar Bowl at the New Orleans Superdome down in the Big Easy. I've been to the Sugar Bowl once. Saw Louisville and Florida play in that game. And so looking forward to hopefully heading back down there. Dustin Dopirak with the Indy Star. Well, you probably need a chamois across your camera there. It looks like you're not as beautiful as you normally are.
What is that all about? Better?
Oh, there we go. Can't hide that. He's back, baby. Maxine may make an appearance later. You can't have
she is right here. She is right there. She's
in the makeup chair.
Yeah.
In the makeup chair.
There you go. But she's around. She's chilling.
How was your weekend?
Good. Lots of basketball. Watched TV on Friday night. They were in Philly. They played yesterday. Mother-in-law was in town. Went up to Carmel, did the Chris Kindle market,
Oh, wow. That you could have stopped it. Mother-in-law was in town, and that would have been a whole other conversation.
For the record,
she is. Of course, they all are, right?
We had a really good time. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. So, but,
I'm just
but good weekend.
Just kidding. Yeah, it's that time of year where there are some big things going on, and then there are some nothings going on in college basketball. It's like this weird mix of some conference games, but you're not in conference play yet. It's kind of like the Vince Vaughn talking about the hug you do the butt in hug, the butt out hug.
Right.
It's a weird time of season in the college game. And even in the NBA, they had the mixture of the in-season tournament, which is a good thing. It gives it some spice. Of course, this time of year, you need some spice because there's a lot of other attention being drawn away. College football is, while in a lull at the moment, has been raging. It's been a raging machine because of its success.
Sure.
And that brought to mind something which, not about the Pacers per se, but just about sports in general. The NFL does an incredible job. Matt Taylor once told me that I think it's a 4% each year. 4% of the teams make the playoffs that didn't make the playoffs. And I saw a stat. I just happened to see a stat last night. Other than the Jets, who haven't made a playoff game in like, I don't know, a billion years. No, it's like 14 years or something. Other than that, the teams behind them were all in single digits.
Right.
And the Colts weren't even on that page. But that's in college athletics. That's not what we were accustomed to seeing, especially in football. We were accustomed to seeing Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, yada, 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 yada. And now, man, oh man, are we getting to see something different and something fun, and people love it.
Turnover. Yeah, no, I mean, people love it. There are some parts of it people don't like. I mean, it does feel like people don't like how the sausage is being made, and that I think is true. But they're
never going to.
No, they're not. The end game is working. So I mean, like, obviously, so what is that? I mean, obviously, so why is that the case in the NFL and the NBA, and baseball to a lesser extent? Well, yes, basically, but to a lesser extent. But, you know, obviously you have two things that drive that. I mean, one is draft and two is scheduling. I mean, in the NFL in particular, you know, you have like the opportunity, basically, you know, your schedule is dictated by how you finished last year. You know, obviously you play the teams in your division, you play two other divisions, but the rest of your games are, you know, like, where did you finish? You know, like you play, you know, if you're in the AFC North, you might play the AFC South that year. You obviously have your however many conference games, but you know, like the fill-in games are based on where you finish. And if you were the fourth place team in the AFC East or whatever, you play the fourth place team in the other divisions. And so that gives you a chance to get yourself a little bit better. And you know, in this case, to speak to that in the NBA, in this just particular one, and this is only two games, but still, I mean, the Pacers got to play two pretty bad teams this weekend because they did a bad job in the NBA Cup. They went 0-4 in the NBA Cup, and they got through kind of the additionally scheduled games. Like if you don't get a knockout round, they schedule two more games for you. And they got the 76ers, who have been terrible because, you know, Embiid and Maxey and Paul George have all missed time. And they got the New Orleans Pelicans, who have been just absolutely decimated by injury, or were playing without Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. So they got some, you know, bonus opportunity to kind of get back in it. And, you know, obviously in college sports, you don't get anything that way. There is no draft. But the transfer portal has functioned that way. And so you do have this scenario. You know, I obviously there's new sort of, you know, controversy this weekend is people getting angry at how the sausage is made. You know, Penn State had its backup quarterback leave, and its backup quarterback is valuable. Bo Prabilla matters to that team because he's the more athletic quarterback.
Man.
Yeah, so that's a rough deal for Penn State because he matters to their you know, to their game plan, to what they do. But on the flip side, you know, like you're seeing that you almost have to transfer as a quarterback in college football. I mean,
and
like,
he cited that. He basically said, "Hey, man, it's not me. It's I don't have a choice. This is
the window,
the timeline." And I agree. They moved the timeline up this year, but that's again, we're already in a wild west scenario.
Sure.
We're able to move at will, but when you're able to move at will while the freaking season is going on. That
Right.
is, I'm like, okay, is it just me or is this total insanity here? You cannot
Right.
have Marshall. Marshall has withdrawn
story.
from a bowl game.
Yeah.
And first of all, how big is going to a bowl game for a Marshall? It's huge. And they had to freaking withdraw.
Right.
They
It's
had
not
to
huge.
withdraw.
It's
That's
big.
sad.
Yeah, no, it is. It is sad. I mean, and I think thankfully, they found a fill-in for that one, because I think this is the second time, I want to say something similar to this happened in 2020, and obviously it was different circumstances. But you had a team back out that was going to play a service academy. And I think it particularly stings the whole institution of the bowl games when it's a service academy that is runs the risk of not playing. And I think, obviously on top of that, I'm sure the portal works different basically for a service academy. And when you're leaving, that's a bigger deal. I think if you determine that you're leaving the service academy for
they
football.
may send some people after you, man. You may have to watch over your shoulder.
Yeah, the rules are different. I think it's not desertion. I don't think you can be prosecuted in that particular case. But still, it matters. But I think it's like it was just when a team like obviously Army loses the Army Navy game, and I think that that happened after basically all of that was taken care of before the Army Navy game on Saturday. Basically, Marshall backed out, and then they got Louisiana Tech to step in. But going into that game, Army was 10-1. Going into that game, and basically it would just really be rough in the Independence Bowl to have somebody back out on the opportunity to play Army. That just really it looks bad. And if you didn't have someone play, if Army was just not playing a bowl game because nobody would play them, on some hand, it's funny to think about the concept of someone just surrendering to the Army, but all the same, like a team like that should play a bowl game. It earned that right, and they're never going to back down from those. Like a service academy is never going to opt out of a bowl game ever. And so it just looks like, what are we doing here when, you have to go work that hard to find a 5-7 team to play, United States Military Academy. So I mean that just I'm sure it would not have sat right if it didn't take, thankfully Louisiana Tech stepped in within hours to accept that. But still, it just creates a bad scenario, and obviously everybody understands why the window is what it is. Why everybody sort of steps in there, because you want everybody wants to get on board, but like as far as just for coaches, their opportunity to recruit, you have some space in here in between the season ending, so that you can and even bowl games to send some people out and do some.
To me, that sucks in and of itself, because instead of being able to focus on the task at hand, you're having to divert that, especially for teams that are in the playoffs.
Right.
Playoffs.
Right. But I mean, the other thing is you have until, and it's trying to get somewhere for spring practice, because I mean, like you have to be there before class starts, if you're going to get in. I mean, you don't have to be there, but if you're imagining that in this, even in the space of transferring and all that, you still intend to get a degree, you have to be in class, basically, if you're going to go to spring practice. And so it is tough on these kids. I mean, it's Bo's point, like, hey, I didn't like doing this, but if I was going to make a move and I had to make a move at some point, this was the time to do it. And because they don't, the championship game is not until January 20th. I mean, you're at least a week into class by the time that's over, so it's a tough deal. So I mean, you probably will have transfers out of whoever wins the national championship is going to lose guys. Indiana's already lost guys in Elijah Green. And so it is what it is. I mean, basically, like there's going to be a payoff for whatever it is. But to your point, it does create more parity. It changes the scenario where you're just going to have these teams build empires. It's harder to maintain that. And it's going to give other teams a better opportunity to get better. I mean, again, Indiana's playing a transfer quarterback, in the playoff, and that transfer quarterback finished top top 9. He finished 9th in the Heisman Trophy balloting, and that guy was playing somewhere else last year. So, that is part of what makes this whole thing spin. But it's taken some getting used to, and there's probably going to have to, maybe they can tweak some things. But the calendar is what the calendar is. Again, like if you want to get in there, get to your next team for spring practice and get integrated on the team so that you can have your spot for whatever you want to be next year. It has to be an early portal. Maybe you create rules that you can stay for the bowl game. Or you can stay for the playoffs or something like that and leave open that opportunity, or say that you have to be granted that spot. But all the same, I don't know how that's going to work with the team that you're departing, how they're going to feel about that. There are things that you might be able to change, but not much. There's not a lot. There's not a ton of leeway there.
The plane, boss. I don't know how, but somehow Hervé Villachet and Tattoo ended up being a discussion in the Andy Moore Honda hotline right now. But
sure, okay, all right.
It's kind of hard to jump in the middle of that. But I think this could be one of the best CFP games because I think it's a good matchup.
Sure.
And I'm trying to be as objective as possible. On paper, Indiana looks to be the better team. They are the number 1 defense in the country against the run, and it's not close. They hold teams to 70 yards a game, 2.5 yards per attempt, and less than a touchdown per game. Notre Dame's not even in the top 50 on that, and that's all that it goes down to. Then against the run, against the pass, they're number 9. So they have a pretty balanced defense. On the offensive side, they've got a decent running game, and one that if they can get going against a defensive line that Notre Dame has that is not as formidable as either Ohio State or, say, Michigan, Indiana's passing game will just destroy them, because now you've got the most efficient quarterback in the country in Curtis Rourke, who not only is extraordinarily efficient, he is effective. Indiana, notice someone said that even though Indiana has thrown 6 less passes than Notre Dame, they have 11 more touchdown passes. That is efficiency, people. Curtis Rourke is number 1, I think, in yards per attempt, yards per completion. That stuff matters, but it also goes back to, I think, having a little bit more of a balanced attack, getting the running game. They weren't able to run the game terrifically against Ohio State, but at the end of the day, they had the top rusher in that game and almost had the number 2 rusher in that game. So on paper, Indiana is the better team. The environment will not be as daunting as it was at Ohio State, I believe. So, man, Indiana has a damn good chance of winning this game, as crazy as that sounds.
They do. I mean, this is where the schedule comes in. Basically, that's certainly where. So I'm obviously going to be on 2 sides of this. That doesn't mean that none of those stats count. The dominance matters. But Notre Dame's Indiana's got a really good rushing defense. Statistically, this attack is tough. Basically, Notre Dame's running backs are the real thing. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Prince, those tough guys. Riley Leonard could really run the football as a quarterback. I think certainly they're Indiana, no doubt to me, has the better quarterback. I don't think that's close. I think Curtis Rourke is significantly better than Riley Leonard. But that Notre Dame secondary is legit. Xavier Watts.
You're damn straight there. That's why Indiana has to get the running game going. Because Notre Dame's secondary is for real. They are like Velcro, man. So they're going to have to loosen things up and force them to put 8 guys in the box. And if you have 8 guys in the box, now you've got one-on-one matchups. And as good as Notre Dame is, you're not going to keep Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper and Miles Cross under wraps all day. Just not going to happen. And the tight ends.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I do think I don't think they'll overcommit to the run, just because I think they obviously know who they're dealing with. And Xavier Watts is awesome. Xavier Watts is incredible. I got to, we went to a game last year, and he just, he's everywhere. He is absolutely everywhere. And so he's a game-changing player, and everybody follows his lead. He is going to be a pro, no doubt in my mind. Not just going to be a pro. He's going to be a top 15 pick or something like that.
He's not along the Watts lineage, is he?
Which Watt? I don't think so.
JJ Watt?
No.
I don't know this particular player, so
no comment. Just find a picture. He's not.
You didn't even have to say that. I already had as soon as you said that, I'm like going, well, that's why I put the caveat. I don't know this particular player, so there's. I'm not going to make any bad joke about that. You never know. Sure. You just never know.
Okay. All right.
Could have been adopted.
Moving right by. It's Watts versus Watt. I'm done. Anyway. All right. Point of the matter is he's really good. He's really good. And so, there is definitely not a circumstance, but numbers wise, they would be higher up in stuff if they played a weaker schedule. If Notre Dame did play Indiana's schedule, Notre Dame would be better as far as individuals or sort of collective unit statistics are concerned. But back to your point, Indiana still really has a shot because there are areas where they are really good. The receivers are really good, and the quarterback's really good. And so, it is a really good passing attack. It's a sophisticated passing attack. They've got a lot of options, and they can get you crossed up because you have a lot of guys you need to cover, need to keep your eye on. And they have been able to run the ball, and they have been able to balance their offense. And so, they're not. Notre Dame's not going to shut them down completely. Indiana's going to get some points on the board. And again, if you're Notre Dame, you don't want to fall behind. That's, I think, the biggest thing if you're Notre Dame is that you don't want to fall behind and have to lean on Riley Leonard to come back for you. That's when they've been better, is when they've been able to just really thump people, is when they're, all those guys are running the ball. If they're picking up chunks of yardage and chunks of yardage, they have a chance to get up on you. When they can get up on you, they're tough to beat. Basically when Notre Dame can build leads, and that's mostly what they've been able to do is, for a lot of these games, they've been able to build significant leads and put you away because you're not stopping their running game. Not many people are. Again, Indiana's been really good against the run, and they've got a chance to make a difference. Obviously, Mikael Kamara has been fantastic. They've been really strong up front. But that's a strength on strength matchup, I think, is Indiana's rushing defense versus Notre Dame's rushing attack. Again, those guys are tough. They pound you, and they really, really do. And if they're really running the ball, and they can throw it enough. But if you're Notre Dame, you don't want to fall behind and trust Riley Leonard is going to come back for you. And so that's, I think, the situation is if Indiana gets a big lead early, you got to feel really good about yourselves because, it's a lot harder for Leonard to come back. But if you're Indiana, you do have a chance because you have the better quarterback. Rourke has a chance to lead you back, even though, he hasn't played from behind very often this year. He has the capacity to do it. Basically, they have those kind of weapons. Obviously, you really want to be able to throw the ball if you fall behind. In that scenario, Indiana has a better chance of coming back than Indiana does, but Notre Dame is very, very good from playing from in front.
Absolutely. And this is just going to be a phenomenal opportunity for Indiana without question for so many reasons. First of all, because it's a playoff game, you could stop right there.
Sure.
But because it's Indiana, you can't stop right there. It's at Notre Dame. It's on national television on a day where they are the only game in town. All in the years will be on that game.
Yep.
On a Friday night, which means you have no competition in regards to high school football, nor college football, or NFL for that matter.
Right.
So football fans are going to be watching this game, and obviously, if they win, well, hell, just what you're now in the final 8. And that for all the flack that Indiana has taken this year, man, a win would sure go a long way in shutting up people like Paul Feinbaum and all those other guys who have just slayed Indiana about this. And I get it because Indiana is still Indiana, even though they're 11-1 in the CFP. They have to show that they're with the big boys. They need to beat They need to win a substantial game, in my opinion, to get that stamp of approval from other people. Not that it's needed, but it does help. I don't care who you are, because next year when the polls comes out and Indiana is ranked, where will they be ranked? How they finish will determine that. And if you don't think where you start helps you, it doesn't completely prevent you. Indiana's a perfect example of that. But look at Notre Dame. They're also a perfect example of, if you're ranked high early and you can, if you take a crap loss, you can still overcome it. If you were ranked high enough. If Notre Dame was a normal team and wasn't ranked and they got beat by Northern Illinois, they wouldn't even be a whisper in this conversation.
I wouldn't go that far. Well, I wouldn't go that far.
If it wasn't Notre Dame on their chest and they played the schedule they played without being in a conference, if it wasn't, I'd say that, they would not even be in this conversation.
I think they'd be in this conversation because the other opportunity, the other thing was number 3, was 3-loss Alabama was the team, like SMU got
in. If it wasn't for SMU, they'd be in.
Right. But I mean, SMU got in too. I mean, so I think, I want to give the committee some credit. Obviously, again, Notre Dame helps, but I mean, there are some decent wins on this list for Notre Dame. I mean, they beat Texas A&M, they beat Louisville, they beat both, and this year beating both service academies mattered, and they hung a lot of points on them. I mean, they scored 100 points combined against Navy and Army, and those are two good teams. So I mean, I do think they would still be part of this discussion. They would still be in it. They would probably still get in the playoff. Again, Notre Dame gets you points because, I mean, I think if you're the committee, you do set this up to say, okay, we've got to give Notre Dame a shot because we have it, in such a way that the champs get in, basically. So it's like, okay, well, we still there still has to be an opportunity for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame's history matters. Where they were ranked coming into this season is less important, but then it is that obviously, the committee is always going to consider Notre Dame by virtue of the fact that it's Notre Dame. But it's not like Notre Dame didn't do anything, and it's not like Notre Dame's not good. And in previous years when it was a 4-team playoff, they might have been right there, and maybe they get bonus points for being Notre Dame here. Basically, when there's an opportunity to get Notre Dame in it, they might have taken it. To give them the benefit of the doubt on some.
Yeah, they wouldn't have made this 4-team playoff though.
What's that?
They would have been just outside of this 4-team playoff.
So you figure it would have been Oregon, Georgia, and who? Texas,
Penn State, and Texas.
Okay.
I think they would have given it to Penn State. I'm not saying that they deserved it.
Penn State and Notre Dame would have been tough. Penn State and Notre Dame
because of I don't think that they would have counted the loss in the Big Ten championship against them like they did not do. And partly because they played a good game against Oregon. So
but they didn't.
You're playing that well against that top of a team, and then you look over at Notre Dame's resume, and you're like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't see it. There's no way that a team that lost to Northern Illinois at home can play in a 4-team playoff. I don't think, but doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about that. It is what it is. Hey, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Stars with us, Pacers beat writer. When we come back, we'll pick up on the Pacers, and they've got a new player, someone you might be familiar with. Thomas Bryant, the former Hoosier, now on the Pacers. Indiana fans are all about that stuff too. I'm like, you know what? I guess that's cool and all, but at the end of the day, if I'm a fan of a team, I just want to have the best pieces on the team. I don't care who, what, if it works out, that's great. But we'll talk about that and lots more. Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Make sure you're giving him a follow and be a subscriber. Back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after messages. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fischer. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bite, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Monday, getting your week started off right. No better way to do it than with Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, the beat writer for the Pacers, and just sports knowledgement extraordinaire. He is the man about town. He is the Renaissance man. Been everywhere, done that, got the T-shirt. And do you miss doing more different sports at the same time, or being on a, or you prefer to be on a beat?
I mean, I
don't know
do.
if people understand there's a difference.
Yeah.
You're a beat a reporter, man, you are all in that, and it consumes you. It takes up everything you do. And when you're not, it's just as hard the other direction because you're doing 1,000 different things. But back to
I mean, I think obviously when you're on a college beat and you just cover, like, you kind of cover everything, and every sport takes up a lot of your time, but nothing is so overwhelming. Obviously, when you're on a professional beat, basically when you're on either Major League Baseball, NBA, or I presume NHL, I guess there's just so many games basically. And so like you're just, so many nights are dedicated to that. And basically once you get through that, it's like, okay, well, that's most of your year anyway. So you get to the end of the season and nobody's trying to throw you on very much random stuff. College ball, everything sort of fits into its window. But you end up, chasing a lot of different stuff. And then you even get to spring, and then, maybe you cover baseball, or maybe you write feature stories here, feature stories there. I do miss that. I miss the, fact that every once in a while you're picking up something that you haven't written very much about. I mean, I would go, basically the basketball season would end, and obviously I would put a lot of time into baseball, too much time, especially when I first got there, and basically they were still playing at Sembauer. Even though they had Alex Dickerson on that team, I just sort of made a point to go over there more. And my boss at the time, Chris Corman, who was also, one of my best friends from college, was like, dude, stop going over there. You need to go to AAU games. You need to go, cover recruiting. Like, that's way more important. And I was like, but this guy's going to be a Major League Baseball player. Like, I should follow him. And so we would get into arguments about that. And so I had to really fight to cover baseball at all. And it ended up paying off, obviously, a few years later when they ended up in the World Series, that I had ins with those guys, that I got to know Tracy Smith pretty well by making a point to go over there, and it ended up paying off. And I still throw that in Corman's face every once in a while. That, you know, that's why I got to cover the Schwarber team as closely as I did, and get as much insight as I did, because I was around, you know, when they were only having 150 people show up for their games. But, you know, you connect to more things. You know, like I would write track features, and I got to know Derek Druin before he won a gold medal. You know, so that kind of stuff you get to connect to more, where it's, you know, with the Pacers, you're just following these guys, and it's really just, you know, 15 guys at a time that you get to know. So there's less of a pool for the stories that you get to tell. You know, and another thing that's fun about college sports is so many other things tie in, and these are also public institutions. You know, you can request a whole bunch of information and get it in terms of what's being spent on what, and what's in these contracts, and what's in these things, and what's in those things, where obviously the Pacers are a company, you know, privately owned company. You don't get all of their papers just by asking for them. So those are some things that you missed, because you get to delve into different things, you get to learn about different things. So that I miss, but, you know, it is cool to cover a team every day, all the time, and really get to know them and be, you know, they're adults. You know, the one thing that you, and I miss less about college, obviously, is you're sometimes covering at the whims of 16-year-old kids. Tell the story all the time. You know, we were, you know, basically, like, I've been dating my wife for maybe 3 weeks, a month or so. It was Little 500 weekend. We got a seat at Knicks, and I got a text from somebody saying, "Hey, did you see Tim Priller just committed?" So I had to leave my table, you know, with my new girlfriend at the time, who I've been married to, but I had to go call all of Tim Priller's people. Had to just stop it, because in college,
Tim Priller, the Thriller,
the
vanilla
Thriller. I just had to walk, and so, you know, just had to go, because it was an IU basketball commitment. An IU basketball commitment, you had to stop everything you were doing, and whenever some 17-year-old IU basketball commitment decided to commit, you had to stop. Football, not quite as high of a priority at the time, but still, it was hey, they could commit at any time. You just had to do this. Whereas, at least in the NBA, there are windows for the most part of, you know, this is when free agency happens. This is when you need to be parked in front of your computer. You know, and so, like, on June 30th, you need to be, you know, whatever it is you're doing, at least you know it's coming, basically, and you have to, you know, just be ready that this is when news is going to break, where college, it could happen every time. So there's stuff I miss about it. There's stuff I don't. But, you know, the fun part is, the better part about covering the pros is, obviously, you get open locker room. You get to actually know these guys, they get around you. They see you every day, you know, whereas, obviously, especially when it comes to IU, it's a huge beat, and ergo, and you know, like, all of this stuff is sort of not orchestrated isn't the word I mean, but you have, you know, press conferences. When it comes to basketball, those guys are at a podium. It takes a lot more for them to get to know you, and you to get to know them personally. You know, really, you have to see them at recruiting events, because that's the only way they're going to see you, aside from whatever is put together by the athletic department. So that I miss less. But there's good and bad to both. I'm glad, like, to your point, glad to have done all of this stuff and not just have come out and been in one area or another. You get to see how all of it works, and how all these worlds are different.
Well, in regards to the Pacers, first of all, I'd like to say my first question would be, normally, if I wasn't going to ask about Thomas Bryant, which I am, but someone please explain this team to me. They can't beat the worst teams in the NBA, but then they go to Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia's not good.
Well, I know, but then they go on the road and beat Philadelphia. They come home, they handle the Pelicans, which is also probably not, I don't know. Are they a middling? Would you even consider them a middling team right now?
They would be really good if they had their guys, and they don't, so they're terrible. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson has been out. So Zion Williamson got hurt the first time they played on November 1st. I don't think he's played since.
Did his parents take a pay cut when he left Duke?
Probably.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Not when they got out. Not when he got his second contract. Well, does he have a second contract yet? I don't know. One way or another, he's getting paid just fine right now. So any money that he's throwing their way is a lot. But yeah, no, I mean, so obviously the team they played last night was very beatable. I mean, Ingram and Williamson are their two best guys. They still have CJ McCollum and Devontae Murray, and those are pretty tough covers, but the Pacers did a pretty good job there. So to explain them, I mean, there's a lot there. There's been a lot of up and down. I mean, obviously one of the biggest pieces is their all-star point guard just wasn't right for a while. And he's finally over really his last 11 games. You're seeing Tyrese Halliburton play the way that he's supposed to play. Basically, he's making shots. I mean, I think obviously there were some physical issues there. He's been dealing with a back thing, and that goes back to last season. Don't think there were any lingering effects from the hamstring, but there was a calf thing over the offseason. So don't know what all physical elements had to do with stuff, but it definitely seemed like missing one shot led to more. I mean, it seemed like he was putting a lot of pressure on himself, and every time he wasn't making shots, that begat more missing of shots. But really, I mean, I think the most broken I saw him was in the Milwaukee game. They played over there, and that's a big deal for him because he's from Oshkosh, which is about an hour and a half north of Milwaukee, and he's always got a bunch of fans there. He had a terrible first half against Milwaukee, and he just looked broken, like he had forgotten how to play basketball and lost enjoyment out of it. And we talked to him immediately after, and I think people were thinking that we sort of hounded him, and we came in the locker room and said, "Okay, Ty, are you ready?" And he said, "Yeah." And he was sort of, you saw some emotion, some sort of eye welling going on in the middle of that interview, and I think people were like, "Wow, what is up with Ty?" And so, but he hit 4 threes in the last half of that game, and then he came back, kind of got right at home. And since then, he's been pretty good. He's right at his shooting averages. He's averaging right around 21.7 points per game since then, shooting right around 48% from the field, about 40% from three. So you get Tyrese Halliburton back functioning the way that he can, and suddenly you're in better shape. And so they've been a little bit more functional since then, but even, they really looked shaky until this past week. They had time to actually practice. Like, they hadn't practiced at home since like the middle of November, and it happened maybe once. And so the practice mattered, and I do think they set themselves up back for success this week. Obviously, it helped that they got 2 bad teams. Philly just ain't right yet. Joel Embiid just ain't right yet, and he went down at halftime with a sinus fracture because Benedict Mathurin accidentally elbowed him in the face, going up for a rebound. So Philadelphia was really vulnerable there. And New Orleans, again, is just missing so much firepower with Williamson and Ingram being out. So all of that really helped their cause and put them in a situation to get a couple wins. Now, going forward, they're going to get really tested. They got a couple more opportunities to practice this week, and then they go out west to play Phoenix, Sacramento, and Golden State. Phoenix and Golden State are 2 playoff teams at the moment. Sacramento's at 500. The West is a lot better than the East. So at 13-13, Sacramento would be like the 7 in the East, but they're like the 12 in the West at the moment. So, those are all going to be tough games. And obviously playing on the road out west is tough. It takes a lot out of you, when you're changing time zones and stuff like that. It's a different world. I mean, they're going to spend some time in Sacramento. We're going to get 3 days to hang out in Sacramento. Looking forward to that. And then they get Golden State on the second night of a back-to-back. From there, then they come home. Basically, they're home from Christmas. Next day, they play Oklahoma City. That's the first place team in the West. And they get 2 games in 3 days in Boston, defending champion Celtics to come back to play the Bucks on New Year's Eve. The Bucks look really good. Obviously, they're about to play in the NBA Cup final against the Thunder. So they're really getting tested coming up. Basically, you're going to see if they've really got right at all. And they could play well in that post-Christmas stretch and not win any games. That is a tough stretch of basketball games they've got right there. Boston, Oklahoma City could easily be the NBA Finals. And I think Milwaukee has gotten right. It took them a while. They had a really bad start, but I think they're getting it together. And Giannis is just an absolute force, leading the league in scoring right now. And if the only reason he's not the best player in the world is Joker exists. But other than that, he's just been absolutely fantastic. So they're really, they needed these games because it could have gotten out of hand if they didn't win these 2. And it could still get out of hand. They could lose 7 straight without, they don't even have to play poorly. They could lose 7 straight, basically. So they need to get one or two on this West Coast trip, and because getting even one in those last 4 is going to be really tough. You're mute, Jim.
Thank you.
You
speaking of this West Coast trip, we recently saw Thomas Bryant visit with his Miami teammates, including Kellel Ware, but he visited an IU game during that time. Hadn't seen him for quite a while. Now, part of the games that you're talking about will be a meeting of Trace Jackson Davis out with the Warriors and Thomas Bryant, although Thomas Bryant, the pickup, was a little curious to me because I'm like, well, he's not playing for Miami. What is he going to play for the Pacers, and where? Whose minutes is he going to take?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. This was a case of Miami had a guy they weren't playing, and Indiana has an opening. And so basically, I mean, like this was like Miami had to get rid of him. Like they didn't give up anything practically. Basically, it's a second round pick swap. So they changed second round picks in 2020-31. They just had to send something over there. But he'd only appeared in, I think, 4 of the Heat's last 17 games. Basically, since they've gotten kind of fully healthy, he hasn't really fit in with what they need to do. But the Pacers don't. I mean, they've been playing Obi Toppin at the 5, and Obi Toppin is a 4. And so they put together a pretty decent second unit and start to function pretty well. But since, Isaiah Jackson, James Wiseman have been out with Eric Kelly's tendon tears, they've been looking for somebody to play. They went out and signed Moses Brown. He just didn't quite seem like he fit or kind of knew what he was doing. Moses Brown is a giant human. He's 7'2", 250 pounds. Stands out as large even among NBA players, and that tells you something. But just, doesn't have touch on his shot, just, is a really big dude, but just didn't seem to kind of have it all together. Bryant obviously is a much more experienced guy. He's had several years where he's averaged in double figures. They think he's a much more game ready player. And they need to cut down minutes for Miles Turner. Miles Turner's playing a ton of minutes, and they need somebody to take some of his minutes away. They need somebody to be more available. If Turner is going to be in foul trouble, they need to be ready for bigger matchups. Obi at 6'9", 220 obviously has a lot of size, but small ball 5 is not, he's done pretty good at it, but that's not his natural spot. You want somebody there that is a more real deal center, and Bryant at 6'10" with a 7'6" wingspan gives you that. He had a couple really good moments on Sunday. He had a 3-pointer. He had some shooting touch, and just had 2 rebounds. He just stuck his big hand out in the air, grabbed it one-handed, pulled it in. You need a guy with real size, even if you're not going to give him 15 minutes a night. Even if you say, you know what, I really like this small ball lineup. I like how these guys are functioning together. Basically their second unit has been, they check Pascal Siakam out early and bring him back early. And you have this group together that's Siakam, Toppin, Jarris Walker, Johnny Furphy, and TJ McConnell, that's giving you, 5-10-ish good minutes, right around end of the first quarter, going into the second, and then, kind of early, like late third, early fourth, that group's played together pretty well and it's starting to develop some chemistry because they've had so many pieces move because of injuries and guys coming in and coming out. That's been tough for them to really get cohesion, especially for the second unit. And that's been helpful. And you do ask yourself the question, okay, do you want to switch that up and throw Bryant in there and maybe, take Siakam out of it and maybe keep him longer with the first unit or what? And, do you end up taking some of Obi Toppin's minutes? Because Obi has been playing very, very well lately. But, Obi's, career sub 4 rebounds a game. Basically like he is not, he tends to, because he's such a good transition player, because he likes to get out and run and dunk, throw down alley-oops, he tends to leak. He tends to leak out. He tends to, cheat a little bit when it comes to rebounding. And instead of doing that, just start hitting the road and getting down the other side of the floor. And that leads to some buckets, but also that hurts you on the glass. And they've had issues on the glass. They're one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA the last 2 years. So they have asked him to rebound more, and he's done a better job of that really over the last 2 weeks. But it's only over the last 2 weeks, that he's been really kind of focusing on getting better on the glass and really focusing on making sure that he is staying down there and not taking opportunities to cheat. So, I think it still is important that they get him. They were openly looking for a guy, and basically, they cut Moses Brown earlier this week, and Rakestraw basically said, December 15th is coming up pretty soon, and that was kind of his way of saying, we're going to go get a guy. They had gotten disabled player exceptions for Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman, which gives them a little room over the cap to obtain somebody. Thomas Bryant does fit in that. I don't think they even need to use it for him because he makes little enough money that he fits under the cap, or not under the cap, under the luxury tax. They're way above the cap. But they were able to get him without causing themselves any problems there. So bottom line, he fills a need. For the Pacers. He is a guy that is, how many minutes he's going to play, it's not necessarily going to be game changing. He's certainly not going to start. But they need a real five guy to come off the bench, basically, even if it's not going to be every night, even if it's not going to be every kind of lineup. There are lineups they're going to need a guy like Thomas Bryant against. New Orleans isn't one of them just because they were missing so much, but they still obviously wanted to make sure to get him minutes on his first night on the roster. We'll see. Who he plays against. Again, I imagine he won't play against smaller lineups. He will play against bigger ones when it comes to second units. But it is a necessity to have that piece. They certainly considered it a priority to make sure they got a guy and got him as soon as was humanly possible. In the NBA, if you sign a free agent contract in the offseason, you can't be traded until December 15th. It was telling that news broke on Friday, because it meant they were working on it before he was, they couldn't make it official until Sunday. But they got it done beforehand to make sure that they were already kind of heading in that direction. So that was a both sides situation where the Heat wanted to move him, wanted to give him an opportunity where he'd have more playing time, and the Pacers needed a guy because of the injuries that they've had.
Without question, Dustin Dopirak, cannot thank you enough as always, my friend. I hope you have a wonderful week. And,
same to you, sir.
For your travels, man. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely. We've got lots more coming up from the Hard Truth Distilling Company's studios. We're back with it and more right after these messages. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth, where you shop. If they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fischer. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Been adjusting this stupid mic all day long. It drives me nuts. Never where I wanted it to be exactly. Hope your week has started off well on this Monday, even though it's kind of a wet one out there, depending, of course, where you are. But always grateful to have the fine folks like Greg Rakestraw, Don Fischer, and Dustin Dopirak on with us. We've heard quite a bit from Notre Dame coach Marcus Freeman. Got one more clip here that we'll play that we haven't heard yet. Is what one more question for him yesterday.
Just the challenge that IU quarterback Curtis Rourke and the Hoosiers offensive line pose for your defense.
Yeah, every great offense is led by a quarterback, and this is no different. He's a veteran. He's been in big games. He's played in a lot of football games, and he makes really good decisions. Like, he knows where he's going with the ball. He knows what he's looking for, and he is able to execute at a high level. But more than that, I think their offense, being able to run the ball, is something that they've done really efficiently. And when you think about weather conditions, you think about a Friday night in South Bend, Indiana, weather could have an impact on the football game. And they've done a really good job running the ball. And so we have to prepare, obviously, for the things he does well in the passing game, but we got to make sure we can stop the run, too.
You got that right. That sounded exactly like the correct formula that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will need to employ. But, hey, man, this should be an exciting game. I mean, Indiana has – I think that they have a better chance of winning than losing. Everyone been asking me, hey, well, what do you think? I'm like, man, it's a playoff game. It's on the road. A friend of mine called and said, oh, I'm thinking about putting some money on Indiana. So-and-so told me Indiana's going to crush Notre Dame. I'm like, I don't know about crushing someone, but I think they have a shot to win the game, but I don't, not that it can't happen. I don't see Indiana going into Notre Dame and crushing them, but hey, you never know. If they get on a roll, if Notre Dame can't stop Indiana's running game to allow them to set up a passing game, it could be a long night. Although Notre Dame secondary, they're not going to just lie down. So it should be a very fun, enjoyable game and an incredible opportunity for Indiana to win a major game for them. The ramifications, again, it sounds like a broken record in what I was saying when they were playing Ohio State, but that's because it's the same except bigger. This is the biggest game in the history of Indiana football, period. It is bigger than the Rose Bowl against USC in 1967, which was actually, 68? Because had they won the Rose Bowl, it would have been incredible. It would have been earth-shattering for Indiana then, but it wouldn't have gone anywhere. They would have been ranked, probably would have finished the year ranked in the top 4, which pretty big deal. Don't get me wrong. But if they win this game, they move on in the playoffs and continue to fight for a national championship. Indiana didn't have a shot at it winning a national championship in 67, that team. This team has a chance to play they are playing for a national championship. They're one of just 12 teams playing for a national championship. Pretty incredible stuff, man. It's been a great day, as always. Can't thank everyone enough. Appreciate the fine folks that join us, but most importantly, big thanks to each and every one of you guys. Of course, without you, we have no reason to be here. We've got lots more to come up tomorrow. We'll have some guys from the Notre Dame rival site join us. We'll talk about the Hoosiers and the Irish. Later in the week, Sean McDonough will join us from ABC. He will be on the call for the Indiana-Notre Dame game, so another big week coming. And plenty to talk about. I'm not sure. Oh, I meant to talk about the Bamba situation with Indiana. That there's more happening on that. He didn't answer any questions when posed to him, so we'll get into that tomorrow. So big thanks to everybody, as always, for joining us here from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.